Hi, everyone. I'm Jason,
And I'm Moses.
and welcome to the Scaling Freedom AI show, where we deconstruct the latest AI research and translate that for founders and business leaders so that they're able to implement them at a practical level. Super excited to kick off today's show. Moses, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about multi-agent application systems to enable office collaboration.
What is this about? We took a look at this research paper. The name of this research paper is called Multi-Agent Application System in Office Collaboration Scenarios. It is a mouthful. And let's see, it's 12 pages of dense text. And the reason why this research paper stood out is because, back on episode 1, we were talking about how most people are stuck at this foundational level 0. They're just interfacing with ChatGPT and just having that dialogue with it. But once you start thinking about, well, how can AI actually help improve the things I'm doing day to day in the office, like scheduling tasks, reviewing my email, planning, doing business planning, a lot of times it falls apart. So why does it do that? Walk me through the TLDR of like what we learned in this research paper.
Yeah, I mean, what I think most everybody going into this, and I did early, kind of started playing with the common known models. I thought that this one model could do everything, or I could have just this agent, right? And a lot of times it's a generalist and it can do some things, but to actually execute a process that is practical and saves me. As defining any process, there's stages of the process that you want to break down or to be more efficient. So when we look at the problem of like a generalist AI assistant, there's usually, and people run into this with limited context memory, right? So it can't maintain everything over time, right? The ability to handle complex multi-step tasks. Like right now, you see with ChatGPT, will ask you, it will ask if you want a delivered output. And it'll say, do you want it in a Google Doc or do you want me to create this and that? And it will give it to you, but it actually can't do it. Right. And that's just an example of some of the challenges of having this massive generalist agent. And it's not truly a workflow. There's inflexibility and error handling, and then that component of different actions, right? It executing and learning how to handle different actions. And that's the problem of just having one agent. But when we think about it as a workflow and you have multiple agents, you can actually give it discrete actions, train it, and have it engage with other tools to actually execute that chain of tasks to complete a workflow.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just summarize the key learnings of the research paper. So they found that when you're able to split up the instead of everything compiled into one super agent, splitting that up into specialist agent, what that did was 4 things. Number one, improved efficiency and lower error rates in complex tasks. Number two, a better understanding of what the user input is without having to repeat yourself. Number three, a more reliable output that you can trust. It's super frustrating when you're inputting something and you're expecting it to have contextual understanding. It's either forgetting what you previously talked about, we call it the goldfish memory, or you're just getting inconsistent, unreliable results that make you just lose faith in using AI altogether. And lastly, when the experimenters tested this in multiple different office scenarios, whether it was like email handling or calendar scheduling or complex planning and research tasks, it received really positive user feedback across a bunch of different business scenarios. So I'd love to just bring it back down to the practicality level. How might an entrepreneur or a business owner actually implement this into their workflow? And one of the concepts I love, Moses, is this planner solver architecture. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like?
Yeah, so it's actually breaking out specific tasks, right? And so the planner is breaking out user requests into the tasks and sequences them. And then there's the solver component that identifies the parameters and executes tools for each of those tasks, right? So if you think about kind of, hey, the broader flow, and then what are the tasks that need to be completed to enable it? It's starting to route them, right, to the solvers to get them in the appropriate time to execute the task.
Yeah, so let's break down a real example just to role play, and we're making this up on the spot. And let's just say that you're trying to analyze the quarterly earnings report of Nike's, right, for last quarter. And so the planner agent might be the one that tries to figure out, okay, what's the goal? Like what problem are we trying to solve? What are the steps that it takes to get the results, right? So the planner might break it down into the following. So it might say, go to investor relations on Nike's website, go find the latest date and download this latest report. Look specifically in CFO remarks to capture the insights, like breaking the entire workflow down into steps. And then the solver is actually the one doing the execution and doing the analysis and surfacing those insights. This is while this sounds obvious and like it sounds like this anyone would think like this, when the typical user uses ChatGPT, how often are you seeing that interaction break it apart between planner and solver? One of my favorite features of Cloud Anthropic is the ability for it to show you its thinking process. So it has this like think, scratch pad, and answer. And I love that because it's almost like you're looking under the hood. So before executing, think first. And then what we've been learning is that if you can force the AI system to think before it acts, you typically can get a better, more reliable output. So Moses, there's a couple more interesting concepts that we picked out from the research paper. Query rewriting. What is that?
So query rewriting was a concept that was new to me. It uses dialogue history to resolve ambiguous references. Like that's it. So it helps maintain a coherent, multi-turn conversation, right? So for example, find notes for our last meeting, summarize that. AI knows what that refers to in that situation. So it's got that query rewriting to give it that context to execute.
Yeah. I like maybe an analogy would help. So imagine you had a professor that was an expert in prompt engineering. So how I think about query rewriting is you write a prompt and you say, hey, help me plan a vacation. Now, if you had this coach, this prompt engineering instructor, if you will, they're rewriting that under the hood and saying like, well, plan me a vacation in Madrid for the month of August for my family vacation. So it's able to rewrite your specific user query into the context of what your overall goal is because it has previous context of what it is that you're trying to solve. How do we actually bring this to life? Like how might business owner or an operator implement some of these key concepts from this research paper into the AI automation process? Moses, take us home.
So we'll give an example. So for query, we're talking specifically around query rewriting.
Doesn't have to be overall, like just like how do we take the key concepts from this
From the
research?
agentic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, really, it's kind of thinking about that process and dividing kind of agents to specifically execute tasks within the process, right? So that they're having that context. So you back to that architecture of planner and solver. You have the planner that plans out the process, sends it to the other individual agents to solve that particular task, to then pass it on to enable the workflow. So it's really about spreading that workflow for execution across multiple agents instead of one general agent that makes it more efficient to complete the task and save you time in terms of what you're doing.
Yep. And there was one last thing that caught my attention, which is there's a planner, there's a solver, and then there's a agent that actually determines like what tool should you use. And like that's maybe one part of the research paper that I slightly disagree with is I think potentially the tool agent could just be a part of the planner agent simultaneously. The planner, the manager agent, whatever you want to call it, is simultaneously thinking about, well, which specialist is the best AI teammate to help me solve my distinct problem. But in addition to that, what tools should they use? What tools best empower them to be able to get the desired result? I know one of the main reasons why we decided to kick off this show is how do we take information into application? Talk to me about some of the actionable takeaways that, like, what do I do with this information? What do I do with this research on multi-agent systems? What's the so what?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaways and how to actually apply this is thinking about where within your business you can get leverage out of doing this, right? So being conscious of thinking about demand context awareness, like the tools and how well they'll handle things for you and handle follow-ups and references. I would prioritize special AI tools. So choose solutions that are optimized for your workflows, right? Not generic chatbots, not solutions where you're adapting your business process to meet the parameters of that solution. Actually look at it, how this solution can support my business process. And then think about where are those areas of high friction tasks, right? Look at, repetitive pain points, right? Where it's like, it's taking your time. It's not high value return on your time, and see how you can actually put these in place to solve that, right? And then the biggest thing is really kind of that overlying assessment. What's the return on my time? What am I actually saving by doing this and creating this workflows? And that's the best way to start, right? Because you're going to learn by doing it. You can segment that process, and then you can kind of iterate it. And from there, you'll start seeing the second tertiary impacts of freeing up your time in the execution of that process, right? And then as I think about this and where this is going, it's like it is the future direction, right? It's freeing up you, the founder, the leader, or anybody within the organization to execute at high value tasks or at high value work, opposed to being bogged down with the tasks that just slow you down and consume the majority of your time. So these really dynamic, large scale, highly interactive environments across multiple agents is going to be continue to be the norm as people think about their business, and how they think about their operations and the workflows, and enabling multiple agents to execute things, right? It's great. It frees up a lot of the things that we all have to do that we don't want to do, and it just sucks our time out of our day.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And one of our buddies, Jeff Woods, who wrote a great book called The AI Driven Leader, one of the powerful questions that he mentioned in the book is, how can AI help me solve this? And I love that question because a lot of us are anchored on the limitations of AI because most people think that it's just a chat interface and I'm just using it primarily to improve my email drafts. And part of the ROI conversation and part of helping taking all the research learnings that we've shared on this episode, how do I bring it back down to the business? It's powerful to ask that question, like, how can AI help me solve this for my business or for my personal life? I think that's a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button below and we'll catch you on the other side.